Good morning YouTube! Another job we need to do at the 30,000 mile sea service interval is replace the power steering fluid, which involves draining the old fluid down, refilling with clean fresh fluid and then bleeding all the air out of the system. Now if you're also replacing the cam belt at the same time, then do this power steering fluid job in two halves. So drain the fluid down first, then replace your cam belt, then come back and refill the power steering system and bleed the air out of it after replacing the cam belt. The reason for that is that it is much easier to get this cam belt cover off if you can remove this power steering pipe, which you can do after you've drained the power steering fluid down. However, we've already replaced the cam belt, so we're going to do this power steering fluid job all in one go today. The first thing we need to do is drain the power steering fluid down, and we do that by removing the feed and return pipes from the steering rack, and we're going to get at those by looking through the right hand wheel arch. Now looking through the right hand wheel arch, follow the track rod and the steering gaiter, and then the valve body on the steering rack is that thing that I'm just pointing to there, and that's what the pipes are connected to. Now fortunately we are removing the suspension on this car anyway, so in the next video I'll be able to actually show you the pipes that you need to take off. To drain the fluid, have something underneath ready to catch the fluid when it comes out, and then undo these two nuts, which are the feed from the pump and the return to the reservoir. So it's a 16mm spanner on the lower one. And 14mm on the upper one. When all the fluid's drained out and you've cleaned up the mess, then do the nuts back up. The correct torque wrench setting for these is 20 Newton meters, which if you don't have a torque wrench that you can get on the end of there, that works out at about 14 kilogram force on the end of a 15cm long spanner. When you're refilling, the correct fluid is Dexron or Dexron 2 automatic transmission fluid, and there are two lines on the dipstick on the filler cap. The lower line is the one that we're going to fill to. That's the level that the fluid should be filled to when it is cold. The upper line is the level that the fluid expands to once it's hot, once you've driven the car. The reservoir is on the rear right hand side of the engine bay. Now with the system refilled, we need to bleed the air out of the pipework and the pump, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to turn the engine over on the starter motor while turning the steering from lock to lock a few times. Now we need to prevent the engine from starting when we do that, because if the engine starts then the pump will just suck all the fluid out of the reservoir here and suck a load of air into the top, which will obviously defeat the object of what we're trying to do. So the way to prevent the car from starting is either to trip the inertia switch if you have a Series 1 car, or if you have a Series 2 car, the easy way of doing it is to remove a fuse. Now all cars have a thing called the inertia switch, which is designed to trip in the event of a collision, and it cuts off the power to the fuel pump. On Series 1 cars it's in the battery compartment, and you can manually trip it to prevent the car from starting. So basically find it, pull the plunger into the up position, and that trips it, and now the car won't start. It'll turn over but it won't start because there's no power to the fuel pump. And then when you finish, just push it back down again and the car should start. On Series 2 cars they also have an inertia switch, which is behind the passenger seat, behind the speaker compartment binacle, but you can't manually trip that and reset it. So on Series 2 cars the easy way to do it is to remove a fuse from the fuse box on the passenger side door post. So find the fuse box on the passenger door post, remove the cover, and then the fuse you want to remove is the one in slot A3, which is this 7.5 amp fuse in the middle of the top row. So pull that one out with a pair of pliers, and that should disable the car from starting. And you can tell that you've successfully disabled the fuel pump, because when you turn the ignition on you can't hear the fuel pump priming. So now we're just going to turn the engine over on the starter motor for a few seconds at a time and turn the steering from to right and left. And actually it might start for a few seconds, but it'll quickly cut out. Just a few seconds, and then go and top up the fluid in the reservoir. And at first you'll have loads of air bubbles in the fluid like this, but after a few cycles of cranking the engine for a few seconds and topping the reservoir up, eventually the fluid will be clear. When there's no more air bubbles coming up, just top the reservoir up to the first mark on the dipstick, and that's it, you're good to go. Then just reconnect the power to the fuel pump and fire up. Happy power steering!